And good evening, everybody. Tonight we are not going to have hymnology again because we are so pressed on time and getting through these rhythm lessons. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to get them done, okay? So let's begin first by making sure that everybody finished all their assignments from last week on adding up their musical notes. I hope everybody did that. Tonight what we're going to do is we're going to build off of last week. Last week was on basic rhythm. I taught you about quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, and whole notes. Well, tonight I'm going to teach you the other half of that coin, which is the rests that are involved with the notes. When you have a note, you sing or play the note. When you have a rest, you don't. You rest. And you must learn how to recognize a rest, what its value is, and so that you'll know when to sing and when not to sing. Or in our case tonight, know when to clap and not to clap. Okay? So let's look at our first page here, which will be your outline. Number one, the types of rests. I built you a tree on the side to show you the different notes. Adjacent to those out to the side, you'll have their associated rests. So the biggest note of all is the whole note. And so by default, there must be a whole rest. Now you can associate in your mind what a whole rest looks like, because the symbol kind of looks like a hat that has been wholly taken off and set to the side, meaning that the brim is up, because if you take it off and set it down, it's going to be facing up. The whole of it will be going up. So it looks like a top hat that's been turned over or wholly removed. So the whole rest is worth the same amount of beats as a whole note. You just don't do anything for those beats, okay? So if you see a rest, you do exactly what it says. Rest. Next you have your half notes. We know it takes two half notes to make a whole note. If you cut a pie in half, you have two sides, okay? So it's a half and half. Two half notes make a whole. The half rest is very similar to the whole rest, but it's not wholly removed, it's only halfway removed. Instead of taking it and flipping it over, the hat is just simply removed and placed. So it looks just like a hat that is sitting on a shelf instead of wholly removed and turned over. So it's a half rest worth 2 beats. Okay? Next you have your quarter notes, and we all know that it takes 2 quarter notes to make 1 half, or it takes 4 quarter notes to make 1 whole. You have a quarter rest, and that's the funniest looking rest symbol of them all. It's really odd looking, so it's very easy to remember because of it being so distinct. So every quarter note is worth 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every quarter rest is worth 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. You rest and don't do anything. And then you have your eighth notes, which we all know that breaks down even further. It takes 2 to make 1 quarter, it takes 4 to make 1 half, and it takes 8 to make 1 whole. And the eighth rest looks kind of like a glorified 7. Okay? So it's worth half a beat. And last week we learned that we count those beats by adding an and into the count. So instead of, like a quarter note would be 1, 2, 3, 4. If you were clapping eighth notes, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? That way you get your 8 put in there. And it does help if you rock back and forth like a metronome to help you count the beats as you go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Or you can tap your foot. 1 and 2. No, you can't. Never mind. Forget it. Alright, number 2. The stems. And what we're going to look at tonight is the stems of the notes. Now, every single note has a stem except for a whole note. Whole notes never have stems. If a whole note had a stem, it wouldn't be a whole note. It would be a half note instead. So, when you're dealing with stems, there are times that the stems point up and there are times that the stems point down. When the stems are to point up, they're always on the right-hand side, as you see in the diagram I showed you in number 1. Look at number 1, how every single one of those notes, when the stem points up, it's on the right side of the head or the dot, okay? And the rule of thumb is, and it's not correctly laid out in the chart here, but in the rule of thumb, to be given with when it points up or points down, is that when you've reached the second space, or in the treble clef, that would be a, or if you're in the bass clef, that would be a C. That would be when it points down. Up. It points up. But then when you go above the middle line, they start to point down. Okay? B can be either the middle line in the treble clef or the bass clef, which would be B in the treble, D in the bass. It can point up or down. It kind of depends on what direction the music is going. If it's going to go the music is ascending, then it would be in accordance to those, so it would be pointing down as they go up. But if the music is in a descending pattern, it would point up as they go down. Okay? If the stem points down, it's always going to be on the left-hand side. Just remember that, okay? If it points down, it's always going to be on the left-hand side. All right, turn the page. Now let's get a worksheet going here, working on rests and stems. The duration of musical silence is a great way to put it. Musical silence is indicated by different types of rests. The quarter rest is equal to 1 beat. So in 4/4 time, how many beats are in a measure? 4. That's exactly right. And the quarter note gets the single beat. So you would count, let's all practice counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that would be the beat or the tempo of the song. If they were all quarter notes, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, if they were eighth notes, there would be twice as many. So it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if it were half notes, it would be half as many. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it was a whole note, it would only be 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? But when you have your rests, you still count them, you just don't do anything. So notice in the first measure of the example there, that when you have a 4/4 time, 4 beats in a measure, you would, and each quarter rest would represent 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't do anything, but you still count the rhythm. It still goes on 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice in the second measure, there are 2 half rests. They're each equal to 2 beats. I understand what they're doing, but musically, if you're going to have 2 half rests in the same measure, it's the same thing as a whole rest, so you wouldn't actually do 2 halves together. But for the sake of demonstration, that's why it's put in here. So you would still count 1, 2, 3, 4. You just wouldn't do anything. There are rules to follow when drawing stems on half notes and quarter notes, okay? If the notes are on or above the third line, the stems for half notes and quarter notes, well, also for eighth notes and 16th notes, are drawn downward on the left-hand side of the note head. If the notes are below the middle line, stems are drawn upward on the right side of the note head. So what we're going to do first is we're going to practice drawing quarter rests. At number 1, trace the ones that are given to you in the first measure. There's 4 for you to practice on, and then draw 4 quarter rests in each of the next 3 blank measures in number 1. Okay? I'm going to practice drawing them on the board because I don't do that often. Is that right? Nope, that's not right. Kind of looks like a bird with his mouth open, beak and everything. I don't think that's what I was going for. Oh, I got one more line to go. There we go. That's it. Down, right, left, right, half moon. Okay. Right, left, right, half moon. Not bad. Kind of looks like a symbol for a comic book villain, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. We could call him the Rester. He just does nothing. The sin of idleness. It's a very evil thing. All right, number 2. Draw 2 half rests in each of the first 2 measures. Then draw 1 whole rest in each of the last 2 measures. Now, what was the difference between a half rest and a whole rest? You know, a whole rest is a whole rest because it has been wholly removed. It is taken off and set aside. If it's a half rest, it's just kind of just been plopped over to the side. The hat is still upright instead of wholly turned over. Okay? And by the way, they're always put in the third space. They're either hanging off of the line. If it's a whole rest, it's hanging off of the 4th line into the third space. If it's a half rest, it's sitting on the 3rd line, taking up the 3rd space. Notice that in your example above. It's always filling in the 3rd space. It's either hanging or sitting. So just 2 half rests in each of the first 2 measures, and then 1 whole rest for the remaining 2 measures. Okay? Okay. Let's practice counting to 4 again. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Okay, so at number 3, you're going to write the count below each of those rests. If it's 4, 4, it means it's 4 beats per measure, and the 4th note or the quarter note gets 1 beat. So you're going to count to 4 in each of these, and you will place a number or the value underneath each of those quarter rests, which should be 1, 2, 3, 4. They each get 1. But when you get to the half rests, it's a little different. You're still going to write out 1, 2, 3, 4, but you got to make sure that you're understanding that 1 and 2 goes under one of them because it's worth 2 beats, and 3 and 4 is associated with the second one because it also gets 2 beats. So it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And so on and so forth. Go ahead and do number 3 once you get number 2, 1 and 2 done. Now number 4 is going to add a little extra element of complication. You're going to have to add the missing bar lines to create the measures. Prior to this, the measures have been created already, but you're going to have to make them. Write the count below the notes and rests, and then add the missing bar lines. So pretend that you have those little dashes underneath each of the rests that's in number 3. Pretend that you have those and write the corresponding count with each of them. Let me give you an example to help you understand. So the first part of number 4, you have a quarter note, and a half note, right? Yep, and a half note. Okay, so the count would be, because a quarter note gets how many beats in 4/4? 1. So it would be 1, 2, and this is worth 2 beats itself. So we're at 1 and 2, so that would be 3, 4. Okay? And then you would put a, because there's no more beats to use. You only get 4, you've already used up 4. So put your bar line, make that a measure. Okay? That's your example. And if you're not getting it, just raise your hand and I'll come help you, okay? Don't be bashful. Good to have you with us. You got a special guest in the back corner. Devin, right? Welcome, Devin. He's been watching us on YouTube. He decided to get brave and come live. Yeah. Yeah, man. And number 5, we're going to work on note stems. So draw the appropriate stems on the following note heads. Remember, the rule of thumb is how it corresponds with the middle line. The middle line can go up or down, it doesn't matter. But if it's below the middle line, the stem would go up on the right hand side. If it's above the middle line, the stems go down on the left-hand side. Okay? So, as you look at that, the first measure is C, D, F, and then G. Well, 1, 2, and 3 beat there are all at or below the middle line. So we're going to draw those with the stems going up on the right-hand side. But the 4th note of that first measure, the G at the top space, That's above the middle line, so we're going to attach it to the left side and go down. So your first three should be right side up, right side up, right side up, and then you should have left side down. Okay? And then you can finish the last three measures there. I didn't know there was a second, third verse, did you? Did you know that song? I didn't know there was a second, third verse. All right, everybody finished? Okay, next worksheet. We're going to look at eighth rests now. This is where it gets complicated, okay? So if we have to dig in, spend a little time here, it'll be all right. Mainly because that's the only worksheet that we also have to go over. But then we have some exercises to do on clapping to get some rhythms. But working on eighth rests. An eighth rest, remember it looks like a glorified 7. It's just got a little more glam to it. You got the dot here, the flow out, and the down. So it looks like a glorified 7. After the first eighth rest, I want you to practice drawing 5 more eighth rests in each of the, so put one in each of those boxes. Okay? So go ahead and do that real quick. Draw 5 eighth rests. Mimic the one that you see there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mine could be a little more pretty. Okay? Yeah, that's more like it. Sometimes it's hard to tell your hand what your mind wants it to do. So an eighth rest has half of a beat value. Okay? So when you're writing counts, you can use a plus sign or an and sign for eighth notes and eighth rests. So if you see 4 eighth notes written out like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We attach them together with the beam. We would count it as, since it's half, 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 we would count 1 and 2 and. Because that's still only worth 2 beats. Because these are 2 halves, that makes 1, and another 2 halves, that makes 1. So that's 1 beat, that's 2 beats. But in order to count the 1 and 2 and, instead of 1, 2, it'd be 1 and 2 and, 1 and 2 and, 1 and 2 and, 1 and 2 and. Okay? So to make the eighth notes effective, you have to add that add into it. Really going to blow your brain here. When you're doing 16th notes, you go 1E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. That's how you make sure that you get them all in there. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's look at number 1. We're going to clap the rhythm of the notes while counting the beats out loud. We'll do it first, the way you can see how it's to be done, okay? Hopefully I can do this, because this is where it gets complicated. You're only going to clap the notes. Obviously, what do you do when you come to a rest? You rest. You don't do anything. But you're still going to count it. So we're still going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But we're only going to clap on the notes, so we rest on the rests. So the rhythm again is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 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 That's the first measure, okay? So do that with me. We're counting it out at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But we're only clapping on the notes. So we clap on 1 but not on and. You see that? But then you clap on 2 and 3 and 4 but not on and. So again, it goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Do it with me. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Very good. So now we look at at the second measure. It's exciting, isn't it? The second measure, you're clapping on one and, but notice now that we have a quarter rest that's thrown in the midst. How much is a quarter rest worth? Uno, right? One. So, we're getting an entire rest on the beat instead of just half a beat. So it's going to sound like this. We're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. You see that? There's no and after 2 because it's a quarter. You don't need an and. It's an entire beat. So let me do it again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. See, I'm telling you. I'm going to get you. All right, here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There's no and. There's no and. I see it, but you're not listening. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Thank you very much. Somebody give me a hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, here we go. All right, try it with me. You're clapping on 1 and, but then you're going 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay? So again, it's like this. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. One more time. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. You got it? One more time. Ready? This is our tempo. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay? Watch your music, and it's 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay? Move on to the next one. This is going to incorporate what we call the backbeat. The backbeat. When you're clapping only on and, instead of clapping at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, the backbeat would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You're on the back side of, so it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That is what you do when you're hee-hawing to bluegrass. It's always on the back side of the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? So the way the rhythm is written out for us here is we're clapping on and 3 and. And they're not clapping on 1, we're not clapping on 2, and we're not clapping on 4. So it's like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Not clapping on 1, not clapping on 2, not clapping on 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Try it with me. You ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I missed it. I missed it. All right, try it again. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and.
You're like Mr. Max. Someone software, slow it down.
You want me to slow it down? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's a little easier. How about that? I should have slowed it down to begin with. I keep trying to go boom through everything. All right, let's move on. The last measure of number 1 is a lot easier. It's a quarter note, 2/8 notes, and a half. So it's going to go, whoa.
1.
Where's my 1? Why?
It's a 1, not a plus.
Ha! Typo. Just know that that's supposed to be a 1. Okay, so it's going to go 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay? You're not resting, you're still keeping your hands together because you're playing that note. So it's 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay? Do it with me. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Don't clap on 4. Ready? Again, 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Don't clap on 4. Don't clap on 4. One more time. You're still holding your hands together on 4, so it's 3, 4. Okay? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. One more time. Uno más. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Yeah. All right. All right, number 2. Number 2. We're going to write in the count below the notes that are indicated. Then we're going to, well, we might try to clap them while counting the beats out loud. So go ahead and write that in. I'll show you your first measure. It's going to be like this. You have your note, that's 1, your rest is and. The note is 2, the rest is and. The quarter note is 3, and then you have the eighth notes that are 4 and. Okay? So it's eighth note 1, eighth rest and. Eighth note 2, eighth rest and. Then you have a quarter note, which is 3. Then you have 2 eighth notes that are 4 and. Okay? Do I need to write that up here, or do you got it? Okay. Go ahead and do that second line right there. Sorry about that. Must have had an earthquake. See, when they're laid out like number 2, it makes it easier to learn rhythm that way. Because we tend to get a little more confused when we see them on the lines of the staff, because we're starting to think, what note is that? Well, it's not relevant at this point. We're wanting just to clap the rhythms. But because that is the way you're typically going to see it, you need to be able to read them in rhythm sequence in number 3, like you would in a regular song. Y'all finished with number 2? Getting there? Almost? I'll give you about 7 seconds. 1. Ma'am.
I need help.
Okay, I'm coming.
I need help on the way back.
Okay. You would put 3 there and a plus there. Yep. Yeah, so it's 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay? There's no and of that because it's 1. It's not cut in half. There's no 2. It's just 2. So it's 1 and 2. Yep. Never ever. Never ever.
Okay, she just told me 1, 2, and 3. And
Somebody stole that one.
that's okay.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So, because those are 2 eighth notes, that one has to be an and. And then this one would be. Nope. 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 See? It just depends on how it falls in sequence. This is the first one, so that's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So that's a quarter note.
Okay. All right.
Got it. Anybody else? Okay. Move along. Next number. Number 3. Write the count below the notes. Same thing. Number 4. You can move on and write the count below those notes as well, and then add the missing bar lines. It's pretty obvious where they go. And then number 5. You need to add flags onto the eighth notes, which I didn't cover, in beams. So just do 3 and 4, and then when we get to 5, I'll cover flags and beams real quick. Yeah, pay attention that number 3 is 2-4, not 4-4. Okay?
So we should only count.
Yeah, you only count to 2. Yes. 2 beats in a measure in now. It's missing a measure.
On the bottom one?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's missing a bar line. It's not right because
I done scribbled out.
that right there is already 4, and you got 5 and 6. Well, that just don't work.
No,
It don't work
I
out.
was all over the place there.
Well, technically that right there is a measure on its own. Or could be. Or that is. because that could be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those could be quarter notes, and these are the eighths. So that's 1, 2. No, wait a minute. Yeah, yeah, that'd be right. That'd be right. If that was a half note, so that'd be 2, 3, and 4. You get it? So if you take this quarter rest out, I think the quarter rest was not supposed to be in there. There's 1 and 2. See, 1 and 2. And this is
3, 4.
and 3. No, wait a minute.
You got 2 rests extra.
3, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 and
That's right.
1 and 2, 3, 4 and. Or that's a quarter note, and that's an eighth note, and that's not supposed to be there. Make that an eighth note and then a quarter note, and just keep that as a quarter note, and that will make it. So that's 1, 2, and 4. Okay. I can't believe they did that to us.
Just make that
So we don't know what to do on this one.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. I don't either. Look at number 5 with me real quick. Number 5 at the bottom of the page. At the very end, there's an eighth rest and a quarter rest. Disregard those because it completely throws everything mathematically out the window. Disregard those, okay? Now, what do you need help on? Anybody need help? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, we can do it after class, so.
You sure? Okay. All right. Okay. So 3 and 4, you should have written in the rhythm underneath it, added your bar lines in. Number 5, dealing with eighth notes and their flags. If you're talking about eighth notes, and you have more than one, they're going to be connected. Okay? So if you have an eighth note, wait a minute. Is it going to go up like that, or is it go up on the inside? Inside, that's one thing. I usually do the wrong one first to remind myself that's not right. So if it's on its own, it'll have a single flag. If it was a 16th note, it would have 2 flags, 32nd, 3, 64th, 4. But we're not dealing with those. We're just dealing with the eighth notes. If you have more than one in sequence, however many the measure allows, however many is required in the song, they're connected by what's called a beam. Okay? So what you need to do, it's always going to be on the right-hand side. So if the note's above, it'll come down off the side. If it's below, it'll come up off the side. Okay? So in number 5, you need to add, first of all, you need to remember you're in 4/4, so there's 4 beats in the measure. Then you need to figure out, in your mind, how can I take that first measure and turn it into 4 beats? Well, you can either have 4 quarter notes. Well, we know that's not going to happen. Or you can have 8 eighth notes. Well, that's not going to happen either because there's only 6 notes there. So it has to be a combination between quarter notes and eighth notes. So pick one of them out to be a quarter note. Probably be a good idea to do the first one, I'm assuming. And then you could make some connected eighth notes, like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th note of the measure. Connect those all together. And then you would have, well, you can't do that unless they're on the same line, can you? The beam only connects them if they're on the same line. Yeah. So if they're not on the same space or line, for example, if they're like this, you would have an eighth note and an eighth note. You can't beam those together. Okay? If you have if you have 2 together, you would pair them. Like you have one that's here and one that's here, because they would both be able to go up, or if they both were able to go down, you would beam them accordingly, depending on if they're supposed to be up or down. But if you've got another one that's going to be down here, you wouldn't have another beam to come down like that, okay? Try to stay away from doing that. Just pair them in 2s. Makes it easier. So number 5, I'll give you a hint on how it works. Let's do it this way. Number 5, the first one will be a quarter note, so we'll just leave that be, okay? Then your next 2 will make as eighth notes. So they are down pointing, so we'll have 2 eighth notes, and we'll take a beam and connect them. Then the next two, which would be number 4 and number 5, we have 2 more eighth notes. We'll make them beams. That. And then the last one has to be a quarter note, because there's only one more note left, and you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 beats. Okay? So that's what we do for the first measure. The second measure, the first note is a half note, so that's worth 2. Well, that means you've only got 2 beats left. Just going to have to connect the rest of them, because that'll make 2 beats. It's 4 eighths make 2 beats. In the next one, the third one, the eighth rest starts at 1. The next one would be and. So how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. I don't know. I haven't actually done this, so I'm trying to do it in my head. 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4. So it'd be 1, 2. Yeah, okay. So it would be the eighth rest is 1. Then the next note is and then the next one would be 2. So the first 2 eighth notes that you see would be connected. And then the next 2 would be connected. No?
No.
No.
The middle 2 would be connected.
That's right. The middle 2 would be connected because that's 2 and. Okay, you get it? Watch this. So this is and then you have an eighth note that's going down. Yeah. You have an eighth note because, I'm sorry, that's 1. And this is and. So you would connect those 2 together if you were going to connect them, because it's a rest and a note, you don't connect them. So it's 1 and then you have 2 more, right? I'm running out of room. Well, you would connect those because they're together, because that would be 2 and.
Yeah, 3 and a rest.
Then you have a single on its own, like this. Completely not enough room. You have a single on its own, and then you have a quarter, right?
No rest.
Oh, rest. I can't see out the back of my head. I'm not a good teacher. Good teachers have eyes in the back of their head. Was that an eighth rest? Eighth rest, okay. Okay. And a quarter note?
Yeah.
How about that? And a quarter note. So it should be an eighth rest, an eighth note, 2 eighth notes, 1 eighth note, an eighth rest, and a quarter note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That gives you a full measure of 4/4. And the last measure, remember I told you to disregard that eighth rest and that quarter rest? Mm-hmm.
I figured it out.
Did you? How? How'd you figure it out?
Move on.
How?
It's syncopation. Read. One and.
Well, this is a Baptist church. We can't do that.
You colored it in. Oh, no, you colored it in. She didn't figure it out. She just made it work.
No. Was that not supposed to be a half note?
No.
Ah, okay. Other than that, that takes care of it?
4 and a half notes.
She made it before today. I have before.
Really? So that would give us 1, 2, 3, and 4. How about that? Okay. Just color in the half note there, and it turns into a quarter. So then that's all right. That's all right.
I'm done.
We better move on. We're running out of time. Go to your next exercise, rhythm exercise number 2. This is a little bit of clapping to help. We had so much fun with it to begin with. Thought you might enjoy a little extra. I anticipated that. So this is in 4/4 time. It's very simple. Remember that we said that the whole notes were the hold notes. Half notes are the slow notes. Quarter notes are the walking or marching notes. Eighth notes are the running notes. But I threw in some 16th notes in there just for a little spice. Those are sprinting notes. Okay? So this is how it would clap. Exercise number 1 all the way to the end. This is how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. Okay? You don't have to know the 16ths, but I just wanted to expose you to that because Familiarity comes with exposure. The more you see it, the more you start to absorb it and recognize it, okay? So, look at that again. Number one, we count the first whole note as an entire measure. It's worth 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. In the second measure, 2 half notes equals 2 beats each, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have 4 quarter notes, which are 1 each. 1, 2, 3, 4. But then in the eighth notes, they're worth half a beat. In other words, it takes 2 of them to make 1 beat. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But remember I told you that 16th notes are 1E and a. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Off. Number 2, look at this one. This one's a little bit easier. It's just quarter notes and eighth notes with a half and a whole mixed in, okay? So look it over with me. Try to clap it with me. It's very simple. It's quarter notes, so we know that the first 2 claps are going to be 1, 2, right? But then you have 3 and 4 and. So the first measure is going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4 and. It's that simple. The second measure, you see a quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, 2 eighths. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and. Okay? The next measure, you have a half note which is worth 2, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, because of the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the whole note's worth how much? 18, right? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have 1 and 2, 3, 4 and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it sounds like this. Put it all together. Hello. Better not be my wife asking me what's for dinner. Nope, it's my dad. He ought to know what I'm doing right about now. Preacher, you call your deacon and get a release on him. All right, ready? This is how it's going to sound. You can clap it with me if you want to, or you can listen the first time. But this is how it's going to go. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, off. Isn't it fun realizing just how incompetent we as human beings are? Do what I say! Wow! And we're saying, don't clap. I said don't do that. You just never know what's going to happen with these guys, I'm telling you. In some states, they'd be registered as lethal weapons. In North Carolina, they're just a menace. That's about it. All right, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Off. Now number three, I added a bunch of rests into it to really make you pay attention. You're still going to count, but you're not going to clap on the rests. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Off. Okay? And you can, what I used to do, and what they used to teach us to do in band, especially when you're trying to play a really complicated part where you don't play the entire thing, you come in, you go out, you come in, you go out. You still tap your foot to the rhythm, but you say the word off as you're resting. So it would be 1, off, 3, off, 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 1, 2, off, off, 1, off, off, off. Oh, no, that's a half note. Off, 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 1, 2. Okay? Got it. But number 4, this is called syncopation. This is called backbeat clapping, okay? You're clapping on the and, not on the number. You're on the back half instead of the front half. So to get it easier to comprehend, you would tap your foot on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and clap on the and. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? So it's going to go like this. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Off. Okay? See? It's simple, isn't it? Not even close. No, seriously, I'm not going to grade you on that. I just wanted to throw that in there. This is stuff for you to take and practice later, because you're going to want to challenge yourself and push yourself, and eventually got to have something to strive for. But you need to learn the number 1 of this exercise and the other exercise that I gave you last week, because that's the basis of the mathematics of music. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or hold, slow, slow. March, 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 run, 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 run. Usain Bolt from Jamaica comes really, really fast, or something like that. You know. Y'all know who Usain Bolt is, right? He's a fast guy. All right, we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to introduce you to some excitement. Your exam. You have an exam because today is the last class of the session. Next week begins our new session. So tonight I send you home with good tidings of great joy. I'm going to give you 2 weeks to work on this, to get this finished. But it's not just an exam. You also have a note named speed test. And it is the grand staff, and it does incorporate ledger lines. But instead of just 20 this time, it's 50. So what I want you to do is I want you to notate how long it takes you to do the entire test. But I also want you to mark, as you go along, the 1 minute point. I want to see how many you can do in a minute, but I also want to see how fast you can do all 50. So as you're going, you have your timer next to you. When you see you've crossed the minute mark, mark that on your sheet so you know how many you've done in a minute. But keep going. Don't let that slow you down. And get all 50 of them done, and then write down how long it took you. So your exam, open book exam, use your notes and what you've learned. You can complete that, turn that in. You have 2 weeks from tonight. 2 weeks from tonight to get that back to me. Otherwise, it will be degraded as late. Okay, so 2 weeks from tonight, I'll let you do that. It's not a difficult one. The speed test is going to be the most exciting part. And of course, any homework that you have not turned in. Last week you should have filled out the It All Adds Up, both worksheets. You should have done those. So tonight your homework is going to be obviously to finish any of the worksheets that you didn't through our class tonight, but do your exam and your take-home speed test. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great night.